questions. And so our final item today is a joint presentation with CalSTRS staff member Geraldo Aguilera and CalPERS staff member Nancy Vintenhaus, who will discuss working after retirement. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. My name is Geraldo Aguilera. I'm the manager over the benefit services team in CalSTRS Service Retirement Division, and my team administrates the post-retirement earnings limit and the exemptions workload.
My name is Nancy Vintenhaus. You guys all know I'm incredibly shy. Just kidding. And so I'm the manager. I'm one of the managers. Rosanna Castine is here as well, over the Working After Retirement program from the CalPERS perspective. So today we're going to talk about where we meet, where there's some overlap, and what we need from you guys as employers.
Okay. So everyone should have copies of the presentation. I think the idea is to kind of give you some general information and then kind of give you a point of reference. That way, if you have more complex questions or specific scenarios, we can discuss those and work with you to get those answers. Okay. So for CalSTRS members, we have two earnings limits. CalSTRS has an annual post-retirement earnings limit and then also a separation from service requirement limit. So, there we go. There, click right there. Oh. There we go.
Apparently we're technology challenged.
So, two limits that apply to everyone unless there's an exemption on the system. So, the annual post-retirement earnings limit is a maximum of $39,903 for the 2013-14 fiscal year. And that begins July 1st, 2013 through June 30th, 2014. Additionally, there's also a separation from service requirement, which basically is a $0 limit applicable to the first 180 days following a member's retirement. So, following 180 days after a member's retirement, they cannot earn any money in a CalSTRS covered position. And then after that period, they're subject to the annual earnings limit.
Can I just clarify one thing, because this comes up a lot. That's not to say you're allowed to earn income, but we will reduce your benefit dollar for dollar. And there's a lot of misconception out in the field about people think you can't work, and that's not the case. You can work. It's just that you're not going to earn a benefit during that period of time.
Okay. So, additionally, additionally, there is a post-retirement requirement per California Education Code 45134 that a member is prohibited from working in a classified position except in the following circumstances. One, as an aide in a class with a high pupil-teacher ratio, and then additionally as an aide to provide one-on-one instruction in remedial classes or for underprivileged students. So this is a much smaller population of people who are STRS members and potentially working in a classified position, but it does come up sometimes, and sometimes we have to answer these questions because they believe they can work, but unfortunately, because of that requirement, they're unable to assume those positions except in those two scenarios. And there are no exceptions to that. As far as enforcement, if we find out, we look into it.
So let's talk about the CalPERS side for a minute. You guys have probably heard me talk a lot lately about this because it is so important and it's impacting so many of our members right now. With PEPRA 752256, retired member may return to post-retirement employment for no more than 960 hours per fiscal year. There are no exceptions or extensions to that. There used to be an extension that went away last year, not with PEPRA, prior to PEPRA, or maybe a couple years ago. But we cannot extend the 960 hours anymore. So it's very critical that you guys are monitoring that time. Just also so you know, at our last School Employer Advisory Committee meeting, you guys asked, I told you that we send out a letter at 800 hours and at 900 hours to keep you guys informed and to keep the members informed, to make sure you guys are monitoring their time. And you guys, the school employer, said, there's a delay in reporting payroll. By the time we get the 900-hour letter, the people are already over. So we've submitted a change to change that to 700 and 800 hours. So you guys will get it earlier. It was a great suggestion. Thank you for bringing it forward. I see big smiles. So anytime you guys have those suggestions, we're definitely open to them, and we appreciate the feedback. We're making a couple of other changes to clarify the language on the letter, including what fiscal year is being reported and what payroll period is being reported. So then that way the letter's clear to all of our retirees and to our employers as well. I love having someone who clicks the slides. The next thing that impacts in terms of PEPRA, again, 752256, is that the retiree should have the skills necessary to perform work of limited duration. I know you guys love that phrase. It's the best phrase ever. It's not really defined. It's kind of hard to understand. So we do understand that, but the law does say of limited duration. So what we look at, or what we consider as special projects, retirees shouldn't be working in the same job for 5 years, 10 years. That's not really a special project anymore. It's a workload. And so you guys may want to consider that. How long is the retiree going to be there? How big is the workload? What's your expectation? The other thing is you can bring a retiree in to prevent stoppage of public business in an emergency situation, fire, flood. Your citizens are revolting for whatever reason. Your police officers are coming in to do some crowd control. You guys can do that in an that could happen, right? That would never happen in California, ever. But so you can bring them in for an emergency. But again, emergencies should be, a very short window period. Hopefully you wouldn't have flooding for 10 years. If you do, you might want to build up your dams or your dikes or those kind of things, because that's going to be a problem. Okay. And then the last piece, again, specific to PEPRA, but it's really important for you guys to pay attention to, is the salary. The retirees can only receive base pay up to the maximum base salary paid to people doing comparable duties. So no incentives, no special compensation, no travel reimbursement, no per diem, no car allowances, no contributions to PARs or other programs like that, because that's additional incentives that go beyond the normal compensation, the normal base salary payable. So it's just something to be aware of. If any of you guys find yourselves in those situations and you need some clarification, definitely feel free to reach out to us for that. We're happy to help. And then 21221H, that just again talks about, as does 21229, which are the two laws you guys fall under. A retired person shall not receive any benefits, incentives, compensation in lieu of benefits, or any other forms of compensation in addition to the hourly rate. So if someone says, hey, I want my education incentive, or I want my, I'm the superintendent and I demand that you pay me this, just politely refer them to the law and then send them to CalPERS. So that way you guys aren't in the middle. We can certainly answer those questions that you guys got. And then lastly, with 21221H, again, those are going to be your unique individuals, your superintendents, your assistant superintendents. Typically, you're going to have an open recruitment during that period. They have to be appointed by your governing body. They can only have one appointment. Again, limited duration. So you might want to do an appointment for 12 months or, 14 months or whatever you think the recruitment's going to take. And then that recruitment must be open. We will ask you for the links to the open recruitment. We will ask you for the duty statements. We will ask you to know where you're advertising those positions to make sure that you're meeting these qualifications.
Okay, so for members who are retirees of both systems, if the member is a retiree of both systems, there's several factors that can impact the post-retirement employment. So the type of position in which they are employed, the retirement system covering their employment, and also if an election was made to retain PERS or STRS coverage while an active member. So these are the sorts of details that we need or will research when we get inquiries from employers, just to make sure that we can determine which rules they're subject to, because there might be some overlap there. There's lots of little details that can change a scenario for one member versus another, depending on what has happened in their prior history of their account. So Those are just some things to kind of remember. Additionally, as far as the 180-day waiting period is concerned, or the separation from service requirement, an exemption request can be used to waive the 180-day period or exempt them from that period. And then for more information, you can contact us and we'll provide you with the contact information on the next slide. So we have a mailbox and we also have a phone number that you can contact and use for questions if you're in the process of submitting an exemption.
And the same thing for CalPERS. A lot of you guys have been working with our most wonderfully talented Liz Burke, who's standing at the back of the room. She's always here to make sure I don't say anything inappropriate. But, you guys are emailing us. Our email is on there. You guys can email us and ask us for sample resolutions. We do have those in draft. We're working on putting them on the web, so we're still working on that. And then I mentioned it at the educational forum, and I'm mentioning it again today. We are so close to having our circular letter finalized. So it will be coming soon. Probably the Friday after Thanksgiving. No, I'm just kidding. But it'll be coming soon because we definitely want to get that information out to you guys so you can make sure that you're following the right rules and regulations surrounding post-retirement employment.
So for us, for questions regarding the earnings limit or exemptions, you can email the mailbox for us, which is postretirement@calstrs.com, or call us at 916-414-5967. And that's a voicemail that'll come directly to my team, and one of our employees can contact you regarding your questions.
And then our email is way too long for me to tell you what it is, but it's on the side. And definitely feel free to send us emails. Liz Burke, Susan Tassa, Rosanna Castine, they do the majority of responses from that email box. I occasionally look in it and then cry, run from the room. But so they're really good about getting responses out to you, getting information, trying to answer your questions. We do get a lot of PERS/STRS questions. As you can see, part of our conversation today is just to go over some of the things that are applicable to PERS, some of the things that are applicable to STRS, and then when there's overlap. And the overlap is the problem, right? Because that's where you guys are hitting the questions. You need to know some definite, like, how can we apply this rule? How can we put this out to all of our employees? Hopefully what you've heard today is that we can't give you definite rules. Unfortunately, the way the laws are written with the Education Code, the PEARL, and PEPRA, it's very specific to each individual case. So what we have to look at is, are they a PERS member? Are they a STRS member? Are they both? Are they PERS who would have qualified for STRS, but they chose to elect PERS instead? Are they working for the same district, a new district? Are they working for, in a classified position, in a certificated position? We have to consider all of that stuff when we're making our determinations. The CalPERS rules are a little bit easier, believe it or not. Woo, woo, go CalPERS. But we have to defer to STRS. And if STRS says no, the answer is no, because their rules are more specific. They have very dedicated, very definite requirements. I like dedicated better. Very definite requirements on, when you can or cannot work as a retiree. And so if you guys call us and you're like, hey, can this person work? And we're all, yeah, sure, no problem. Call STRS. And STRS says, no way. If you call us and say, can you send STRS a letter and let them know it's okay? Our answer is always going to be no. If STRS says no, the answer is no. Because their rules, I won't say they trump ours because, I like ours, but they have to cover, the situation specific to STRS retirees. So it's definitely good to get your questions in. It might take us a couple weeks to respond if there's back and forth between us. Or if you guys send the question to STRS, then they can reach out to us. And then that way we can make sure that you guys are getting the full picture, the definite answer. Okay?
Same goes with us. I think some of the biggest questions are the overlap between the two systems. What truly does take precedence, and in most cases it is our law because we are more specific and more, definitive. So the other thing is definitely reach out to us if you have an exemption that you have a member. There's a lot of the little wrinkles with the exemption stuff. So if you have any questions regarding that, we're happy to answer those questions and kind of walk you through the process. But there are a lot of requirements in that process that we like to make clear up front. That way, it's more likely to get through our process. So, takes care of it for me.
Uh-oh.
Questions?
So do these same rules apply to individuals who are coming back as an independent contractor or employee of a third-party provider?
I love those questions. You guys know that. Independent contractors or third-party providers are kind of a sensitive area right now. You guys probably see quite a few of them. You have lots of questions. Typically, what we have to do is we have to involve our membership analysis team. Emily, that's why she comes to these full meetings. She answers like every question. She's awesome. But we have to route them over, and they have to make the determination: are the duties different enough from what they were doing as a retiree to truly be considered third party? And in a lot of cases, they're not. Those duties are not separate. They're not different enough to be considered an independent contractor and not a retiree. So I like to scare people and say like 90% of people who think they're independent contractors truly are not. But then Emily will, run me over with her car later. So it's really more a matter of each individual. We look at each case. We look at the duties they were doing at the time they retired. We look at the employment agreement. We look at the job duties that are part of that employment agreement. We look at the salary, and we make a decision. Emily's team does the work on those, but we make a decision about whether that's truly an independent contractor. And what we have to look to is the common law employment test. So CalPERS has had a couple of lawsuits, relatively large ones. You guys have probably heard of Cargill. Please don't ask me the other one because I'm not smart enough to remember it. But the lawsuits give us some pretty definite things to look for in terms of common law employment. One thing that came up at the employer educational forum is creating kind of an independent contractor checklist, something that you guys can use to help make some of those determinations up front and, pass some of those sniff tests. So we're actually meeting on Friday to try to get that into place, so then that way you guys would have access to that information. So you won't have it Friday. We're meeting on it on Friday, but we're trying to get that out to you guys to just help in those decisions that you're making.
Where our districts are having the most difficulty is where the retirees are employed through a third-party provider. And it doesn't matter whether they're CalPERS retirees or CalSTRS retirees. Most of the time, they're coming back into the school setting. They may not be doing the same job that they held before, but the duties that they're performing in the school are considered credible compensation, credible service.
Sure.
And so we're saying that, no, you have to be reported as a retiree, and we're meeting such resistance from the employer
Yeah.
because they said, no, we're the employer, we're not covered under STRS or PERS.
So-
And they don't seem to get the idea of the service that's being performed.
Right. That's a good point.
So on our side, we do have what's known as the third-party exclusion written into our law. As part of the requirement for that, though, in order to be excluded from being reported, there is the requirement that it has to be duties being performed that are not normally performed by that employer or at that employer. So
No, by an employer,
by
not
an
an employer.
Yeah. So that changes things a little bit. So they have to be, if they're performing credible duties, then they should be reported. And that's the caveat that very few people fall into that scenario because it's so specific and has so many details to it.
Well, on the CalSTRS side, you have STRS retirees that are coming back and doing, coming in as a professional expert through a third-party provider, and they're doing curriculum evaluations, they're mentoring teachers, they're mentoring principals, superintendents. Those are considered credible service.
Sure.
And so their argument is, while the employer, it's not credible service for the employer. And so we're getting caught in the middle on what we need to do with that.
Can I, Harold, let me respond. I mean, our law is extremely clear. What the law says is if the member is performing one of those activities, it's creditable under our law, and they're doing it either for the employer or through a third party or as an independent contractor, then the compensation they earn counts towards the earnings limit. They can make all the arguments they want to about how they're not an employer, but the fact of the matter is the law says that the member can only earn up to $39,903 and then reduce their benefit.
Right, they're wanting something in writing to that effect, so if
Look
we
at the
have that
education code.
situation and present to CalSTRS or CalPERS, could we get
Well, the
official
circular- I mean,
notification.
The directive that we put out makes it extraordinarily clear. I don't know how much more clear we could possibly be.
They're not accepting that.
Well, what would they
They want a
accept?
letter. They want a letter from CalSTRS saying, yes, in
We're
this
not, okay,
situation.
we're not gonna put out a letter for 25,000 people who want to work when the directive makes it very clear. If they want to appeal it, they can appeal it, but the law is very clear. I don't know how much, I
So
mean,
if a district employs this person, uses this person through that third-party provider, and the third-party provider does not provide the information to report those earnings to CalSTRS, the district's going to be held liable for that. They'll be cited in an audit if an audit
and
is
will reduce
performed.
the members' benefit years down the road. The other thing, because I don't think Geraldo mentioned this, is it's beginning next year, the compensation accounts for the earnings limit also includes contributions paid to a 403B or similar type plan. So that's what a lot of employers are doing, says, well, we'll pay you 39, you'll pay up to the earnings limit, and then we'll put money in your 403B plan. That's not gonna work any longer. That's gonna count towards the earnings limit.
So from the CalPERS side, typically we're not looking at entire organizations. So our process is a little bit different. Normally you would send in your contract and say, here's my contract, I want to work. Once it goes through our MADU team, they let us know, are you an independent contractor or are you retired annuitant? And we send you a letter. But again, on our side, it's because we're looking at specific individuals where you guys may have an entire agency that you're trying to deal with. So it's a little bit more of an administrative burden on the STIR side. But for us, for our side, we send out a letter and we say, you are not, based on the duties you provided, you are not an independent contractor. You need to follow and adhere to the retired annuitant rules. So we do that on our side. Gotta wait for the microphone, Misty.
First, I want to confirm that I think I heard at the forum, the independent contractors, we don't need to report to PERS anymore.
I love you. Thanks for asking that question. So basically what we were initially coming out with in terms of independent contractors is you should report them. And then we've stepped back from that a little bit. If you know they're truly independent contractors, they don't need to be reported. However, with the caveat that, again, 90% of people who think they're truly independent contractors really are not. What we recommend is that you report them while we're reviewing your information. Doesn't hurt you to do it, doesn't hurt it to have it in the system. At least you guys know you're covered if we come back and say they're retired annuitants. So it's more of a protection for you guys as the employer. You're following the rules. You've met the 180-day requirement, or you have a resolution if you need it. You're meeting the salary requirements. You're monitoring the 960 hours. If we come back and say, no, it's truly an independent contractor, they're painting a school and you guys don't have painters, I would assume you do, but I'm just saying, then we could come back and say, okay, they're truly independent. You guys wouldn't need to report them any further. But we would recommend, especially while we're reviewing your contracts, report them, because so many of the people wind up being retired annuitants. Better to be safe than sorry.
Okay, and one other question I have. I think one of the STIRS publications, Joint PERS, Joint STIRS, it talks about when people make that right of election, PERS and STIRS, no matter what they elected, PERS and STIRS, only they can work 960 hours. It's in one of the publications.
I'm not sure. I haven't reviewed that publication in a while, so I'm not sure of the specific scenario, but I can confirm that for you.
Okay,
But
thank you.
Any other questions? Thanks for letting us come and talk today.
I have an overlapping question. It's not a retiree question, though. Is that okay?
Sure.
If I have a certificated STIRS member and they intermittently work in a classified position, would I be charging them Social Security when they do that classified work? Because they don't qualify for PERS, so they aren't under the 218 agreement, because that's held at PERS.
So that'd be a membership thing. I don't know if your membership.
They are a
comes here.
STIRS member, but it's classified work, so it's not reportable to STIRS.
So it's a really good question. I don't know if you have an answer. It sounds like it's a little bit more of a STIRS impact, but
Would that, in the classified position, we would look at, do they qualify for membership?
No.
And if they don't qualify for membership, like I was talking to Francis a little bit earlier, I'd really need to take that offline to our special programs area in the Social Security arena to answer it for you.
They didn't qualify for PERS. He said that at a previous one.
Yeah. So with regards to the Social Security program, I'd have to defer those questions to him.
So if you want to play business card shuffle after, definitely. You
And
know.
who was that again, Emily?
Stephen Prop?
And then Ed, what was that directive number that you were referring to?
Oh, I don't know the number. We put it out every year.
It came out in April. It's 10 pages.
Okay.
It's awesome. It's really good. Any other questions for us? Thanks so much for letting us come talk to you today.
Thank you very much for that presentation. Before we get started, I just want to thank the Santa Cruz County Office of Education who sent in a question to the CalPERS SEAC mailbox. We'll go ahead and answer that question and make sure that we get the information to everybody who's attended today regarding AB 340. So we'll go ahead and do that. I hope that you found the presentations today informative and helpful that as you take information back to your coworkers. Want to thank you for being here today. We have 2 more items of business before we adjourn. First, I'd like to discuss with you the location of the advisory meetings for 2014 and the dates. CalPERS would like to host the school employer advisory committees meetings, in 2014. It could either be all year at CalPERS, or it could be 2 meetings at CalPERS and 2 meetings here at CalSTRS. It really would be your decision. We want to make sure that we do the best that's for our employers, members. CalPERS does have the technology to webcast the meetings, and we'd be happy to have you as our guests once again at the CalPERS headquarters. And so with that, I'd like to get your feedback on that proposal. Is there anybody that'd like to make a comment or a statement? Meryl, I think we have somebody in front here. Could you raise your hand? Yeah, okay, right here in front.
What's that location?
That location would be 400 Q Street, which is located between 3rd and 5th Street in downtown Sacramento. We have underground parking available under both of our buildings. And we would host those meetings. The proposed dates that we have are February 5th, May 7th, August 6th, and November 5th. And that would be at our Lincoln Plaza North building, room 1140.
But the issue is it's entirely up to you.
Absolutely.
You know, whichever you prefer is fine.
STRS building is closer to the airport, so we prefer we can make it on time here than the PERS one. So the preference is for STRS.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments or feedback? Is that how the majority feels? I mean, whatever you'd like to do, we're at your pleasure.
I want to put it to a vote, or it's not
Just
clear what.
The majority, so let's do I'm sorry, show of hands for, I'm
I'm
sorry.
going to do a comment here.
No, I was just going to say, it seems like we've been here for a while. We used to be at PERS, and we've been here for a while. I think it would be only fair to CalPERS if we went back there for a while,
Thank you.
just so that STRS has to travel for a while.
Really, it's a
I'm
whole
just
other
serious, 'cause
county.
PERS
Our
Wow.
staff thanks you.
For years now, and PERS has been traveling over here every time.
Our staff
So it
thanks
just
you.
only seems fair that we would go back there and let it go the other way for a little bit.
Thank you very much. So let's just go ahead and have a show of hands. Who would like to have it at, we could do 2 and 2, whatever the pleasure. Who would like to have it at,
Well, before we do that, I mean, we can do 2 and 2 if you want to. It seems to me that's probably more confusing than just having it all in one place or the other, because otherwise we'll have to think about which time is it this time. So I would suggest either it stays here next year or it goes to CalPERS next year, and
okay.
just to make it easier.
So have a show of hands for CalPERS, please. Okay, and a show of hands for CalSTRS. It's pretty much split. Ed, what do you?
It's up. It doesn't matter to me. I mean, that's, all right, let's do it again. I'll actually physically count them.
Okay,
So
thank
for
you.
CalPERS, who wants CalPERS?
CalPERS, please.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Okay, CalSTRS. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Only
One
one
hand,
hand.
please.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay, so CalPERS. We'll move it.
CalPERS. So the location will be CalPERS headquarters for 2014. Again, the dates are February 5th, May 7th, August 6th, and November 5th.
Wait a minute, before we do the 5th, Carmen, did they talk to you about the dates? Because those are different than what we had, and we have a February board meeting, I worry maybe on that same day. Yeah, those don't work for us, because we have board meetings those days.
Okay, so staff will work with you, Carmen, or I can speak to you afterwards, and we can clarify the dates, and we'll make sure that we get that out to our members as soon as possible. We thank you. And so now that we've chosen the location and the dates are settled, and I'll work with Carmen, what are the agenda items that you'd like to have covered in the February meeting? And please raise your hands so that we can get the microphones to you. One of the questions that came up, and we can address if you'd like, is from the Santa Cruz County Office of Education, and the question has to do with AB 340 and reciprocity between CalSTRS and CalPERS. We can ask for a presentation on that if you'd like. Do you think we should revisit that issue?
Oh, wait a minute. I think I know the question you're asking for. Actually, that's an issue I think Joycelyn, is this question that came up around the for whether or not, for people who are CalPERS Classic, and you're going to talk about that at our session.
This afternoon?
Yeah, this afternoon.
Okay,
So we'll answer that question this afternoon.
very good, thank you. Any items for CalPERS any questions or items, issues for CalPERS presentation in February? Thank you, one moment.
I always like the an update on the payroll reporting at the meetings. So I'd like to have that revisited for anything new.
One more time?
The payroll reporting,
Okay.
there will be new stuff between now and then. So anything that comes up.
Very good.
Well, there's not a lot of changes we have for payroll reporting. We have a lot of enhancements coming up. In December, we have a new release, and then January, we have another release. So I can do more of an enhancement thing, but payroll specific, I don't see a lot of changes. I mean,
Well, I mean, that's all kind of encompassing to me. It's affecting me when I do my file. So it's something that's going to affect my file.
the only reason why I ask for more clarification is because it's either going to come from Brad, because he's the manager of payroll reporting. He would talk about new rules or error backlog reduction, or how to work with his staff to resolve payroll issues. My perspective, if I'm going to present, would be more around file transfer, application enhancements throughout the system. So that's where I know when this question came last time, we were kind of figuring out who should present, because some of it, if it's payroll specific, he presents. If it's my CalPERS enhancements, system functionality, and file submission, then I would present.
That's what I'm speaking about. Yours. The submission.
Okay.
Thanks, Tim.
All right.
You can't
So
get
how
out of
about
the
this?
meeting.
If we do the presentation, then because I have a lot of really great enhancements we're getting in, I'd rather do a My CalPERS Where Are We Now presentation in February, because we will go through 2 more major releases between December and January. And I can talk about all the new stuff that we are either implemented or are in the works to implement come March or May.
Okay.
All right? So My CalPERS Where Are We Now presentation.
Thank you. Any other agenda items? One moment.
Hi, I was just wondering if there's a time frame when CalPERS will require for schools to start reporting non-members. When can we expect, if there's any time frame, when can we expect that to start happening?
One more time?
Non-members.
Thank you. We'll bring that forward. Thank you.
That was a desire of ours at Go Live. That didn't happen, and we are still working on system issues with regards to other processes for us, so that is not within the next year or so. Just count those hours, record that time, because when we come asking, we want to find it.
Anyone else?
If the checklist for independent contractors has been prepared at that point, it might be good to review or present that to us then.
On that issue, let me just sort of go back, because the question was asked about our directive, and I didn't have the number, but the directive is 2013-01, and it was issued on April 3rd of this year, and it is on our website, so you can get copies of it. Can you repeat that? 2013-01, and it was released April 3rd, and as I said, it's available on our website.
Anyone else? Well, again, I'd like to thank you for your participation today. The CalSTRS meeting starts at 12:30. Have a great day.